I stared at my parents across our family vineyard's weathered picnic table, watching them beam with pride as they announced to 23 relatives that their successful daughter Loretta would be funding the vineyard's revival with $200,000 from my recent promotion. My golden child brother Derek sat smugly beside them, having just confessed he'd gambled away 3 generations of family legacy on cryptocurrency and failed expansion dreams. That's when I reached into my purse and pulled out the photographs that would change everything forever. 3 years earlier, everything seemed perfect when Derek took over vineyard operations. I was working as a financial analyst in Portland, making the 3-hour drive home every month to visit our family's sprawling vineyard in the Willamette Valley. The rolling hills covered in neat rows of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay grapes had been our grandfather's pride passed down to my parents, who'd maintained it modestly but successfully for decades. Derek had big dreams from day one. At 28, he possessed the kind of charismatic confidence that made our parents light up whenever he spoke about his vision for transforming our small family operation into a premier destination winery. I watched from the sidelines as Mom and Dad hung on his every word, nodding enthusiastically when he outlined plans for expensive renovations. "We need to think bigger," Derek would declare during family dinners, gesturing broadly with his wine glass. "This isn't just about growing grapes anymore. It's about creating an experience, building a brand that people will drive hours to visit." My parents practically glowed when he spoke. Dad would pat Derek's shoulder and say things like, "Now that's the entrepreneurial spirit this place needs." Mom would beam and add, "Derek understands what modern consumers want." Meanwhile, my business degree and years of financial analysis experience seemed to count for nothing. When I gently suggested they should create detailed budgets before making major investments, Dad would wave dismissively. "Loretta, you work with numbers all day in those corporate towers. This is different. This is family legacy." The first major renovation was a gleaming new tasting room with floor-to-ceiling windows and imported Italian marble countertops. Derek insisted it needed to cost $60,000 because first impressions determine everything in this industry. When I questioned whether such extravagant spending made sense for a small operation, Mom defended him immediately. "Derek's been researching this for months, sweetheart. He knows what successful wineries look like." Next came premium fermentation equipment that Derek claimed would elevate our wine quality to compete with Napa Valley producers. The stainless steel tanks and temperature-controlled systems cost another $40,000. Again, when I suggested they might start smaller and expand gradually, Derek rolled his eyes. "That's typical corporate thinking, Loretta. You have to invest big to see big returns. Playing it safe is why this place never reached its potential before." Derek's girlfriend Madison appeared around this time, a 26-year-old Instagram influencer with bleached blonde hair and an expensive handbag collection. She encouraged every lavish decision, constantly talking about building the brand and creating buzz on social media. Madison would pose for photos throughout the vineyard, posting images of herself sipping wine with captions about living the vineyard lifestyle. "Madison really understands marketing," Mom would say approvingly. "She's helping Derek reach younger demographics." The luxury marketing campaigns Madison designed featured professional photography, glossy brochures, and targeted social media advertising that cost thousands monthly. Derek justified every expense by talking about investment in our future and establishing market presence. Throughout this transformation, I felt increasingly isolated from my own family. Every monthly visit involved listening to Derek's grand plans, while my practical concerns were dismissed as negativity. When I suggested tracking return on investment or creating cash flow projections, Derek would laugh condescendingly. "You're thinking like an accountant instead of an entrepreneur, sis. This isn't about spreadsheets. It's about vision." The spending accelerated as Derek added wine caves, outdoor event spaces, and a commercial kitchen for hosting private parties. Each project cost more than initially budgeted, but Derek always had explanations about necessary upgrades and market expectations. I started noticing troubling signs during my visits. The Vineyard hosted elaborate events with expensive catering and live music, but the actual wine sales seemed modest. Derek would boast about building our reputation and establishing relationships with key influencers, but I rarely saw consistent revenue streams developing. When I discreetly asked Dad about finances, he assured me everything was progressing wonderfully. Derek's building something special here, Loretta. Rome wasn't built in a day. The family dynamics became increasingly strained as Derek's entitlement grew. He expected constant praise for his efforts while dismissing any suggestions or questions as attacks on his competence. Madison reinforced his attitude, often making snide comments about people who don't understand creative industries. "Some people are builders," Madison would say, looking directly at me, "and others are just critics from the sidelines." My parents seemed oblivious to the tension, completely focused on supporting Derek's endeavors. They started hinting that I should contribute more to family success since I had such a good corporate job and no major expenses like Derek does running the Vineyard. The hints became more frequent as months passed. "Derek's working so hard to build something amazing," Mom would say. "It would be wonderful if the whole family could support his efforts." I felt torn between wanting to help and growing concerned about the financial sustainability of Derek's approach. The Vineyard's social media showed beautiful images and impressive events, but I couldn't see evidence of profitable operations or sound business planning. My worst fears began materializing when Derek became evasive about specific financial details. Previously, he'd eagerly shared every aspect of his plans, but now he'd change subjects when I asked about revenue projections or expense tracking. "Why are you always so focused on money?" He'd snap when I pressed for details. "Can't you just trust that I know what I'm doing?" The breaking point came during a tense family dinner when I discovered Derek had secretly taken out a second mortgage against our parents' home to fund his latest expansion project. The revelation hit me like a physical blow, realizing he'd put their retirement security at risk without fully explaining the implications. When I confronted my parents about this dangerous financial decision, they defended Derek's choice as necessary for taking the Vineyard to the next level. Dad insisted that sometimes you have to take calculated risks to achieve success, while Mom added that Derek wouldn't do anything to hurt the family. I left that dinner feeling completely alienated from people I'd trusted my entire life, knowing that Derek's reckless spending had crossed a line that threatened everyone's future security. 6 months after discovering the mortgage situation, the Vineyard's financial troubles became impossible to ignore. Derek's behavior grew increasingly erratic as he missed family dinners and avoided returning my phone calls. When I did see him, he seemed distracted and defensive, snapping at innocent questions and making excuses for declining Vineyard performance. The social media presence Madison maintained told a misleading story of success. Beautiful photographs showed elegant wine tastings, sunset dinners, and sophisticated events with well-dressed guests holding crystal glasses. However, during my monthly visits, I noticed the actual foot traffic seemed sparse and the revenue streams appeared inconsistent. Derek would disappear for hours during my visits, claiming urgent business meetings or supplier consultations. Madison continued posting luxury vacation photos from weekend trips to San Francisco, Seattle, and Vancouver, wearing designer clothes and staying at expensive hotels while the Vineyard struggled with basic operational costs. My parents remained stubbornly optimistic despite mounting evidence of financial problems. Dad would brush off my concerns by saying things like, "Building a premium brand takes time, Loretta. Derek's playing the long game." Mom would add supportive comments about how Derek's working harder than anyone to make this succeed. The subtle pressure for my financial contribution intensified. During family gatherings, conversations would inevitably steer toward my impressive corporate salary and how fortunate I was to have such stability. These weren't direct requests, but the implications hung heavily in every interaction. "It must be nice having a steady paycheck," Mom would say with a meaningful look. "Derek's income fluctuates so much with seasonal business cycles." Dad would nod thoughtfully and add, Family businesses require patience and sometimes extra support during growth phases. Derek's mood swings became more pronounced as weeks passed. He'd alternate between grandiose declarations about upcoming success and bitter complaints about people who don't understand the wine industry. His relationship with Madison seemed strained as she became more demanding about maintaining their expensive lifestyle despite declining Vineyard profits. The breakthrough came during a particularly awkward family dinner when Derek accidentally left his tablet on the kitchen counter while stepping outside for a phone call. Madison was in the bathroom and my parents were cleaning dishes, leaving me alone with the device when notifications started appearing. The screen displayed alerts from multiple cryptocurrency trading applications, showing dramatic losses and margin calls. My heart sank as I realized Derek had been gambling with Vineyard funds on digital currency investments, apparently believing he could quickly multiply the money to solve operational problems. I took photos of the screen with my phone before Derek returned, documenting evidence of his reckless financial behavior. The trading history showed he'd started with relatively small amounts, but escalated quickly as losses mounted, chasing bigger gambles to recover initial investments. When Derek discovered I'd seen his crypto trading activities, he broke down and confessed the full extent of his financial disaster. Through tears and stammering explanations, he revealed he'd invested $50,000 of Vineyard profits in various altcoins that had collapsed in value. "I was trying to fix everything," he sobbed. The Vineyard needed cash flow and everyone said cryptocurrency was the future. I thought if I could just double or triple the investment, we'd have enough to cover all our expansion costs. The situation was even worse than initially apparent. Derek admitted he'd lost an additional $75,000 trying to win back his original losses, emptying the Vineyard's emergency fund and missing crucial equipment loan payments. The total gambling losses exceeded $125,000. "I can turn this around," Derek pleaded desperately. "I've been studying market patterns and I know which coins are going to recover. Just give me a little more time and capital and I can make everything right." My parents' reaction devastated me almost as much as Derek's confession. Instead of holding him accountable for gambling away family assets, they immediately began strategizing ways to help Derek through this difficult situation. Dad talked about liquidating retirement savings, while Mom suggested they could tighten their personal budget to free up money for Vineyard recovery. "Derek made a mistake," Mom said firmly when I expressed outrage about the gambling. "But abandoning family during crisis isn't the solution. We need to work together to fix this." Dad nodded gravely and looked directly at me. "Derek's learned his lesson about risky investments. Now we need practical solutions, not judgment. You're the only one with access to significant capital right now, Loretta." The expectation was clear without being explicitly stated. They wanted me to bail out Derek's gambling debts and poor business decisions while he faced no meaningful consequences for nearly destroying 3 generations of family legacy. "I can't believe you're asking me to reward his irresponsible behavior," I said, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "We're not asking you to reward anything," Dad replied calmly. "We're asking you not to abandon family when we need support. Derek's committed to making better decisions going forward." Derek nodded eagerly, still crying. "I'll never touch cryptocurrency again, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild trust and make this right. Please don't give up on me, Loretta." I left that dinner feeling completely betrayed by people who'd raised me to value accountability and hard work, watching them enable Derek's failures while expecting me to provide financial salvation without any guarantee of changed behavior. 2 months later, my career reached a milestone that should have brought pure joy. After 5 years of dedicated service, my company promoted me to Regional Finance Director, a position that came with substantial salary increase and significant responsibility overseeing financial operations across 4 Western states. The promotion represented years of evening classes for my MBA weekend work on major projects and consistently exceeding performance targets. I'd earned this advancement through merit and persistence-building expertise that made me valuable to my organization and financially independent. When I called my parents to share the exciting news, their enthusiasm seemed genuine and overwhelming. Mom squealed with delight while Dad expressed prideful satisfaction about my professional achievements. They insisted on throwing a celebration dinner at the Vineyard, wanting to properly honor such an important accomplishment. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Mom gushed over the phone. "This calls for a real celebration with the whole family. Derek and Madison will be thrilled to hear about your success." The family gathering they organized included not just immediate relatives, but extended family members I hadn't seen in months. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia drove down from Sacramento, while my cousins Jennifer and Michael came from Eugene with their spouses. The Vineyard's main dining area was decorated with congratulatory banners and fresh flowers. Derek and Madison arrived fashionably late, with Derek offering what seemed like sincere congratulations, and Madison making polite comments about my corporate achievements. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe the evening might represent a genuine family celebration focused on my success. Dad stood to make a toast, raising his wine glass while the assembled relatives gathered around our table. "Tonight, we celebrate Loretta's incredible promotion to Regional Finance Director," he announced proudly. "Her hard work and dedication have always made us proud, and now she's reached a level of professional success that reflects the values we tried to instill in all our children." The applause was warm and heartfelt, with various family members expressing genuine happiness about my advancement. Uncle Robert mentioned how impressed he was with my persistence in earning an MBA while working full-time. Aunt Patricia shared memories of my childhood determination and academic excellence. However, as the evening progressed, the conversation gradually shifted in ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Dad began discussing my new salary range in surprisingly specific detail, information I'd shared privately during a previous phone conversation. Mom added commentary about how financially secure my position would make me for years to come. "Loretta's always been our practical, responsible child," Mom said meaningfully. "She's built such stability for herself, which is wonderful in times when other family members face more uncertainty." Derek's mood became noticeably darker as attention focused on my financial success. He made increasingly passive-aggressive comments about lucky corporate climbers who don't understand real entrepreneurship. When Uncle Robert asked about Vineyard progress, Derek's responses were evasive and tinged with resentment. Madison contributed her own pointed observations about success and family obligations. "It must be nice having such a predictable income," she said with a tight smile. "Some of us work in industries where passion matters more than paychecks, but obviously not everyone can handle that uncertainty." The conversation took an even more uncomfortable turn when Aunt Patricia began discussing family loyalty and mutual support. She shared a lengthy story about helping her brother save his failing restaurant through a substantial personal loan, emphasizing how family always comes first when someone needs help. "Blood is thicker than water," she declared emphatically. "When one family member succeeds, it benefits everyone if they're willing to share their good fortune." Cousin Jennifer nodded in agreement and added her own tale about providing financial assistance to help her brother avoid bankruptcy. "Sometimes you have to sacrifice personal wants for family needs," she said, looking directly at me. "That's what real love looks like in action." Uncle Robert joined the chorus of commentary about family obligations, discussing how successful family members have responsibilities to help those facing temporary setbacks. His words felt like barely disguised pressure, despite being framed as general philosophical observations. The most devastating moment came when Dad stood again, this time to make what he called an exciting announcement about our family's future. With the entire gathering listening attentively, he declared that I had graciously agreed to provide a $200,000 investment to help ensure the Vineyard's continued success and growth. My blood turned cold as I realized I'd been manipulated into a public corner. Every family member began congratulating me for my generosity and family dedication, making it nearly impossible to contradict Dad's statement without creating a humiliating scene. "That's so wonderful, Loretta," Aunt Patricia gushed. Derek's worked so hard to build something special here, and your support will make all the difference." Uncle Robert nodded approvingly. "It's beautiful seeing siblings support each other's dreams. This kind of family unity is rare these days." Derek's smugness became unbearable as he accepted congratulations for securing my supposed investment. Madison beamed as if she'd personally accomplished something significant, already discussing plans for how the money would be utilized for vineyard improvements. "We've got such exciting projects planned," Derek said confidently. "With Loretta's investment, we can finally implement all the upgrades that will take this place to the next level." I sat in stunned silence, realizing the entire celebration had been orchestrated to create public pressure for a financial commitment I'd never actually agreed to make. My family had manipulated my professional success into justification for bailing out Derek's poor decisions, using social pressure from extended relatives to force my compliance. When the evening finally ended and relatives began departing with final congratulations about my generous spirit, I managed to tell my parents I needed time to finalize the investment details rather than committing immediately to their public announcement. "Of course, sweetheart," Mom said warmly. "We know you'll want to handle the financial arrangements properly. Derek's prepared all the documentation you'll need to review." Dad patted my shoulder and added, "We're so grateful to have a daughter who understands the importance of family loyalty. Derek's lucky to have such a supportive sister." I drove home that night feeling completely betrayed and manipulated, knowing that my own parents had used my career success as a weapon to pressure me into rescuing their golden child from consequences of his reckless behavior. Following the manipulative dinner celebration, I requested a week of vacation time from work ostensibly to consider family investment opportunities. Instead of spending that time planning how to rescue Derek's failures, I drove north toward the Cascade Mountains with completely different intentions. For months, I'd been quietly researching small properties in remote mountain areas, drawn to the idea of having a peaceful retreat away from family drama and corporate pressures. The stress of Derek's financial disasters and my parents' expectations had intensified my desire for a place that belonged entirely to me, where I could make decisions without outside manipulation. The drive through dense forests and winding mountain roads felt liberating after weeks of family tension. Towering Douglas fir and western hemlock trees created a green canopy overhead, while mountain peaks provided a majestic backdrop to my journey toward independence. I'd arranged to meet with Sarah, a local real estate agent who specialized in rural mountain properties. She was a practical woman in her 50s who understood buyers seeking escape from urban complexities and family obligations. "This property might be exactly what you're looking for," Sarah said as we turned onto a gravel road lined with towering ponderosa pines. "It's been owned by a couple who used it as a weekend retreat for 15 years, but they're retiring to Arizona and want someone who'll appreciate its special character." The cabin exceeded my expectations in every way. Situated on 2 acres alongside a clear mountain creek, the structure was small but beautifully maintained, with cedar siding that had weathered to a perfect gray patina. A wraparound porch offered stunning views of forested hills and distant mountain peaks. Inside the space was efficiently designed with an open floor plan combining kitchen dining and living areas around a stone fireplace. A sleeping loft accessible by handcrafted wooden stairs provided cozy bedroom space under exposed beam ceilings. Modern solar panels and a backup generator provided reliable electricity despite the remote location. The previous owners modernized all the systems while maintaining the rustic character, Sarah explained as we toured the property. "You've got high-speed internet through satellite connection, a modern kitchen with propane appliances, and a composting toilet system that's completely environmentally friendly." The creek running through the property provided both visual beauty and practical water access. A small wooden bridge connected to hiking trails that disappeared into old-growth forest. The nearest neighbor was over a mile away, ensuring complete privacy and tranquility. "This place represents everything I want right now," I told Sarah honestly. "Peace, independence, and freedom from outside expectations." The asking price was $45,000, a sum I could manage using my promotion bonus and personal savings without touching retirement accounts or taking loans. Unlike Derek's grandiose spending on vineyard renovations, this represented a sustainable purchase that would provide long-term value and personal satisfaction. Sarah handled the paperwork efficiently, and within 3 days, I owned my mountain sanctuary. The transaction felt empowering in ways that contrasted sharply with my family's expectation that I surrender financial independence to rescue Derek's poor decisions. I spent the remaining vacation days at the cabin, hiking forest trails, reading beside the creek, and enjoying the profound silence that only exists in true wilderness. For the first time in months, I felt completely relaxed and free from the weight of family expectations. During quiet evenings by the fireplace, I reflected on my family's treatment and realized how they'd systematically positioned me as a financial resource rather than a person with individual dreams and goals. My parents saw my success primarily as an opportunity to solve Derek's problems, while Derek himself felt entitled to my support without acknowledging his irresponsible behavior. The mountain setting provided clarity about what I valued most: independence, accountability, and authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial utility. The cabin represented my commitment to prioritizing personal well-being over family manipulation. I documented the cabin purchase with dozens of photographs capturing the beautiful views, cozy interior spaces, and peaceful natural setting. These images would become crucial evidence of how I'd chosen to invest my promotion money rather than enabling Derek's continued irresponsibility. On my final evening at the cabin, I sat on the porch watching sunset colors reflect off distant mountain peaks and made a firm decision about how to handle my family's demands. They'd manipulated my career success into public pressure for financial rescue, but I refused to sacrifice my independence for their enabling of Derek's failures. The discovery that would crystallize my resolve came through a social media post Madison shared while I was at the cabin. She'd posted photos of Derek's new BMW sedan alongside captions about finally getting the reliable transportation our business needs. Additional posts showed expensive dinners and hotel stays during what appeared to be a European vacation funded by money Derek supposedly hadn't yet received from me. I realized Derek had already begun spending the $200,000 he expected me to provide purchasing luxury items and funding travel, while assuming my compliance with the family's public pressure. His sense of entitlement was so complete that he'd started utilizing money he hadn't actually secured, putting additional pressure on me to honor commitments I'd never made. The combination of my peaceful mountain retreat and Derek's presumptuous spending clarified my path forward. I would return to the family reunion they'd planned for the following month, but instead of providing the financial rescue, they expected I would present evidence of how I'd chosen to use my promotion money for my own dreams and independence. Driving back to Portland after my transformative week, I felt stronger and more confident than I had in months. The cabin represented proof that I could make decisions based on my values rather than family expectations, and I was prepared to defend that choice regardless of the consequences. The annual family reunion arrived on a perfect late summer afternoon with 23 relatives gathering at the Vineyard for what my parents had billed as a celebration of family unity and future planning. The rolling hills were golden with late-season sunshine, and the vineyard looked deceptively prosperous with its neat rows of grapevines heavy with fruit ready for harvest. Derek arrived in his gleaming new BMW, a luxury sedan that must have cost $40,000 or more. Madison stepped out wearing jewelry that sparkled expensively in the afternoon light, her outfit clearly designer and recently purchased. Their confident demeanor suggested they felt entirely justified in their acquisitions, treating my supposed investment as already secured. My parents had prepared an elaborate presentation complete with printed materials outlining their Vineyard revival plan. The professionally designed brochures featured glossy photographs of proposed renovations, expansion projects, and marketing initiatives that would supposedly transform our modest family operation into a premier destination winery. Extended family members approached me throughout the afternoon with congratulations about my generous investment in family legacy. Uncle Robert shook my hand firmly and expressed admiration for my family-first attitude. Aunt Patricia hugged me warmly while praising my sacrifice for Derek's dreams. "It's so wonderful seeing siblings support each other," Cousin Jennifer said enthusiastically. "Derek's been working so hard to build something special here, and your financial backing will make all the difference." Her husband Michael nodded in agreement. "Family businesses need this kind of unity to succeed. You're really stepping up when it matters most." Derek accepted these congratulations with insufferable smugness, discussing expansion plans as though my money was already in his bank account. He outlined ambitious projects, including additional wine caves, expanded event facilities, and premium equipment purchases that would require precisely $200,000 in investment capital. "Loretta's support comes at the perfect timing," Derek announced confidently to the assembled relatives. "We've got contractors lined up and suppliers ready to deliver. This investment will take the vineyard to levels our grandfather could never have imagined." Madison contributed her own commentary about finally having reliable family backing for their vision. "It's been frustrating working with limited resources," she said meaningfully, "but now we can implement all the upgrades that will establish our reputation in the premium wine market." The formal presentation began after dinner with Dad standing before the gathered family to outline their comprehensive revival strategy. He distributed copies of detailed budgets showing exactly how my $200,000 investment would be allocated across various improvement projects. Thanks to Loretta's commitment to family legacy, Dad announced proudly, "We can move forward with confidence that the vineyard will thrive for generations to come." Uncle Robert studied the budget documents and expressed approval for the planning detail. "This looks very thorough," he said approvingly. "Derek's really done his homework about what's needed." Aunt Patricia nodded enthusiastically while reviewing expense projections. "These improvements will definitely increase property value and revenue potential. Loretta's making a smart investment as well as supporting family." The pressure intensified as multiple relatives began sharing stories about their own experiences with family financial support. Cousin Jennifer recounted helping her brother avoid bankruptcy through a substantial personal loan. Uncle Robert discussed contributing to his daughter's business startup. Aunt Patricia shared memories of her parents sacrificing personal wants to support children's education and career goals. "Family loyalty requires sacrifice sometimes," Uncle Robert declared firmly. "When one member succeeds, they have responsibilities to help others facing temporary challenges." Cousin Michael agreed emphatically. "Blood relationships mean more than personal financial goals. Loretta understands that family legacy matters more than individual wealth accumulation." Derek became increasingly entitled as the evening progressed, treating the gathering as validation of his management approach and vindication of his expensive decisions. He discussed future plans with absolute confidence, assuming my investment would enable continued lavish spending without accountability measures. "Once we implement these improvements," Derek announced grandly, "the vineyard will generate enough revenue to repay Loretta's investment within 3 years, while funding additional expansion projects." Madison smiled approvingly and added, "Derek's vision for this place is incredible. We're going to create something that attracts visitors from all over the Pacific Northwest." The most shocking revelation came when Dad announced they'd already signed contracts for new equipment and facility renovations, expecting my money within 30 days to avoid legal consequences for breach of contract. The family had committed to major expenditures based on my supposed agreement creating financial pressure that assumed my compliance. "We moved quickly to secure the best contractors," Dad explained matter-of-factly. "Derek identified a narrow window for getting premium equipment at discounted prices, so we had to act decisively." Mom nodded supportively. "We knew Loretta would want us to take advantage of cost-saving opportunities. Every dollar saved in procurement means more value from her generous investment." I sat quietly through this presentation, listening to my family treat my money as their property. while Derek and Madison basked in congratulations for their supposed business acumen. The manipulation was so complete and systematic that I felt almost impressed by their audacity. When Dad finished his presentation and asked if I had any questions about the investment structure, I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope of photographs I'd been carrying since my mountain cabin purchase. The time for confrontation had finally arrived. "Actually," I said calmly, "I do have something to share with everyone." I placed the first photograph on the picnic table where everyone could see it clearly. The image showed my mountain cabin's beautiful cedar exterior with its wraparound porch and forest backdrop taken during golden hour lighting that made the property look like something from a travel magazine. The confused silence that followed was exactly the reaction I'd anticipated as my family tried to process what they were seeing. I methodically placed additional cabin photographs across the weathered picnic table as 23 pairs of eyes stared in stunned silence. Images of the creek running through my property, the cozy interior with its stone fireplace, the peaceful porch with mountain views and the surrounding forest trails created an undeniable visual story of where my promotion money had actually gone. "This is my mountain cabin," I announced clearly, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet Vineyard gathering. "I purchased it 3 weeks ago using my promotion bonus and personal savings. 2 acres of privacy, complete independence, and absolute peace." Derek's face turned pale as he processed the implications. Madison's confident smile evaporated into shocked confusion. My parents looked between the photographs and my calm expression as if trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "I don't understand," Mom said weakly. "We thought you were considering the Vineyard investment. These photos, when did you buy property?" "While you were all planning how to spend money I never agreed to provide," I replied matter-of-factly. "Derek gambled away over $120,000 on cryptocurrency, while you enabled his irresponsible behavior and expected me to bail everyone out." The extended family members shifted uncomfortably as uncomfortable truths emerged in public. Uncle Robert cleared his throat nervously while Aunt Patricia studied her hands, avoiding eye contact. I continued methodically placing more photographs while explaining Derek's financial disasters in detail. "He took a second mortgage against your retirement home without fully explaining the risks. He emptied the Vineyard's emergency fund chasing cryptocurrency losses. He spent money on luxury items while assuming I'd cover his debts." "That's not fair," Derek protested angrily, his voice cracking with desperation. "I made some mistakes, but everyone's acting like I'm some kind of criminal. I was trying to save the Vineyard by finding creative funding solutions." "Creative funding solutions?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean gambling with family assets and expecting your sister to cover the losses when your schemes failed?" Madison attempted to defend Derek's actions, her voice becoming shrill with defensive anger. "Derek's been working incredibly hard to build something meaningful here. He deserves support from family, not constant criticism and judgment. He deserves consequences for poor decisions," I shot back firmly. "Not financial rescue that enables continued irresponsibility while putting everyone's security at risk." Dad tried to regain control of the situation, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he'd used throughout my childhood. "Loretta, we understand you're upset about Derek's mistakes, but abandoning family during crisis isn't the solution. We can work together to solve these problems." By sacrificing my financial independence to reward his failures, I challenged directly. By treating me like an ATM instead of a person with my own dreams and goals, Uncle Robert attempted intervention with his own guilt-inducing commentary. "Family businesses require sacrifice from everyone, Loretta. Derek's made some poor choices, but that doesn't mean you should abandon your responsibility to help." "What about Derek's responsibility to make good decisions with family resources?" I countered. "What about your responsibility to hold him accountable instead of enabling continued failure?" Aunt Patricia joined the criticism, her voice heavy with disappointment. "We all thought you understood the importance of family loyalty. This cabin purchase seems very selfish when your brother needs support. Selfish. I stood up, anger finally overriding my attempt at calm control. Derek bought a $40,000 BMW with money he expected me to provide. Madison's wearing jewelry that costs more than most people's monthly salary. They took a European vacation while the Vineyard struggled with debt. But somehow I'm selfish for buying a modest mountain cabin with my own earned money. The accusations and counter-accusations created chaos as family members took sides or tried to mediate the escalating conflict. Derek's anger exploded into desperate rage as he realized his financial rescue was disappearing. "You're destroying everything," he shouted at me. "3 generations of family legacy, and you're willing to let it all collapse because you're jealous of my success." "Your success?" I laughed incredulously. "You've driven the Vineyard into debt, gambled away family savings, and put our parents' retirement at risk. That's the opposite of success." Madison's defense of Derek became increasingly desperate and irrational. Derek's a visionary who's being held back by people who don't understand innovation. The Vineyard would be thriving if everyone supported his leadership instead of constantly questioning his decisions. Innovation like cryptocurrency gambling and luxury car purchases, I challenged. Leadership like secret mortgages and missing loan payments. My parents seemed torn between their instinct to protect Derek and growing awareness that his behavior had been indefensible. Mom looked between Derek's angry face and my cabin photographs with visible confusion about how to reconcile competing narratives. "We just wanted to help Derek succeed," she said plaintively. "We never meant to pressure you unfairly. We thought supporting family business was the right thing to do." "Supporting family business means holding Derek accountable for responsible management," I replied firmly, "not enabling continued poor decisions by providing unlimited financial bailouts." The turning point came when cousin Jennifer, who had been quietly listening to the arguments, suddenly spoke up with unexpected revelation that changed everything. Derek approached me for a $20,000 loan last month. She announced quietly, her words cutting through the family chaos like a blade. He said it was a temporary cash flow problem that would be resolved as soon as Loretta's investment came through. The admission created stunned silence as everyone processed this additional evidence of Derek's deception and desperation. Even Madison looked shocked, apparently unaware that Derek had been seeking additional funding sources beyond my supposed contribution. "You asked Jennifer for money too." Dad asked Derek directly, his voice heavy with disappointment and growing understanding of the manipulation. Derek's face reddened as he struggled to explain his behavior. "I was just trying to cover short-term expenses while waiting for the family investment to be finalized. It wasn't deception, it was practical cash flow management." "Practical cash flow management," Uncle Robert repeated incredulously. "You were trying to borrow money from multiple family members to fund current operations. How is that sustainable business practice?" Aunt Patricia's attitude shifted dramatically as she realized Derek had been manipulating everyone, not just me. "If you needed $20,000 from Jennifer, how desperate is the financial situation? What exactly have you been doing with Vineyard revenue?" The family dynamic began changing as extended relatives started questioning Derek's management and understanding the full scope of his irresponsible behavior. The unified pressure for my financial contribution dissolved into criticism of Derek's deception and poor decision-making. Jennifer looked directly at me with obvious regret. "I'm sorry we pressured you about family obligations, Loretta. I didn't understand Derek was asking multiple people for money while hiding the extent of his financial problems." Michael nodded in agreement with his wife. "This sounds more like desperate damage control than strategic business planning. Maybe Derek shouldn't be managing family assets if he can't be honest about financial needs." Uncle Robert's authoritative tone now targeted Derek instead of me. "Young man, you've clearly been in over your head for months. Asking your sister for $200,000 while secretly seeking smaller loans from cousins suggests you don't understand basic financial responsibility. The confrontation reached its emotional peak as Derek realized his support system was crumbling and his manipulation tactics had been exposed. His entitled anger gave way to desperate pleading as family members turned against his management approach. "Please don't abandon me," he begged, tears streaming down his face. "I can fix this if everyone just gives me another chance. The Vineyard can still be successful with proper support and better decision-making." But the damage was done. My mountain cabin photographs had sparked a complete reckoning with family dynamics, Derek's behavior, and the enabling patterns that had allowed his irresponsibility to threaten everyone's security. Derek's emotional breakdown marked the beginning of profound changes in our family dynamics. Unable to defend his financial deceptions any longer, he stormed away from the gathering, with Madison following closely behind their relationship, with extended family permanently damaged by months of manipulation and dishonesty. The immediate aftermath was awkward but necessary as family members processed the reality of Derek's mismanagement and their own role in enabling his behavior. Uncle Robert, who had been vocal about family obligations just hours earlier, approached me with obvious regret about his earlier pressure. "I owe you an apology, Loretta," he said sincerely. "We all assumed Derek was being honest about Vineyard operations and your agreement to invest. I should have asked more questions before pressuring you about family loyalty." Aunt Patricia nodded emphatically, her embarrassment evident as she realized how they'd been manipulated. "Derek presented everything as though you'd already committed to the investment. We never would have pushed so hard if we'd known he was deceiving everyone about financial arrangements." Cousin Jennifer hugged me warmly, her voice filled with genuine remorse. "I'm ashamed that we ganged up on you about family responsibility while Derek was secretly asking multiple people for money. That's not support, that's exploitation." Her husband Michael shook his head in disbelief about Derek's behavior. "Taking a second mortgage without full disclosure, gambling with family savings, and then expecting you to cover the losses. That's not entrepreneurship, that's financial recklessness." My parents struggled most with the new reality torn between their protective instincts toward Derek and growing recognition of his irresponsible choices. Dad sat heavily in his chair, looking older than his 62 years, as he contemplated how deeply Derek's problems had compromised family security. "We enabled his poor decisions by refusing to hold him accountable," Dad admitted quietly. "Every time someone questioned his spending or management approach, we defended him instead of demanding better business practices." Mom wiped tears as she processed months of denial about Derek's behavior. "We wanted so badly for him to succeed that we ignored warning signs and put pressure on you to solve problems he created. That wasn't fair to anyone." The extended family's shift in perspective created space for honest conversation about sustainable solutions that didn't require my financial sacrifice. Uncle Robert, who had extensive business experience, offered to help my parents restructure Vineyard debt through responsible planning rather than desperate bailouts. Small family businesses can recover from financial difficulties. He explained practically, but only with honest assessment of problems and realistic planning for improvement. Derek's approach of hiding issues and seeking quick fixes through gambling and family loans isn't sustainable. And Patricia suggested my parents consider selling the Vineyard and using proceeds to pay off debts while securing comfortable retirement rather than continuing to chase Derek's unrealistic dreams. Sometimes the wisest choice is accepting that a business model isn't working and moving toward stability instead of throwing more money at failed strategies. Jennifer supported this practical approach, noting that family legacy didn't require maintaining unsuccessful business operations. Your grandfather would want you to be financially secure, not struggling with debt and family conflict over a vineyard that's become more burden than asset. The conversation continued into the evening as relatives shared perspectives about family responsibility, business accountability, and the difference between helping and enabling destructive behavior. The consensus emerged that Derek needed to face consequences for his poor decisions rather than expecting others to provide unlimited financial rescue. Over the following months, major changes transformed our family relationships and the Vineyard situation. My parents enrolled in family therapy to address their favoritism patterns and learn healthier communication approaches that held all children accountable for their choices. "We're learning about enabling versus supporting," Mom explained during one of our phone conversations. The therapist helped us understand that constantly rescuing Derek from consequences prevented him from learning responsibility. Dad's perspective evolved significantly as he gained distance from Derek's manipulation tactics. We confused protecting Derek with protecting his poor decisions. Real protection would have been setting boundaries and demanding accountability from the beginning. The Vineyard was eventually sold to a sustainable farming cooperative that maintained grape production while eliminating the debt and operational stress that had threatened my parents' security. The sale proceeds allowed them to pay off all outstanding loans, including the second mortgage Derek had secured while providing comfortable retirement funding. "It's actually a relief," Dad admitted 6 months after the sale. "We can enjoy the property's beauty without the constant financial pressure and family conflict that Derek's management created." Mom agreed enthusiastically about their new peace of mind. "We visit the Vineyard regularly now and appreciate the grape growing without worrying about budgets, marketing, or family arguments about business decisions." Derek's journey toward accountability was longer and more difficult than the family's adjustment. His relationship with Madison ended when she realized his financial situation was genuinely unstable, rather than temporarily challenging. He moved back home temporarily while seeking employment and rebuilding his credibility. "I spent so much time blaming everyone else for not supporting my vision that I never looked honestly at my own poor decisions." Derek confessed during a family dinner almost a year after the reunion confrontation. The cryptocurrency gambling, the expensive purchases, the secret loans. I was acting like a child, expecting parents to clean up every mess. His humility seemed genuine as he worked entry-level positions and slowly rebuilt relationships through consistent effort rather than grand promises. "I understand now why you couldn't bail me out, Loretta. Giving me that money would have enabled more irresponsible behavior instead of forcing me to learn accountability." The mountain cabin became my sanctuary for processing family changes and enjoying the independence I'd fought to preserve. Weekend retreats to the peaceful forest setting provided perspective on how dramatically our relationships had improved once honest communication replaced manipulation and enabling. My parents began visiting the cabin regularly, expressing genuine appreciation for my decision to prioritize personal well-being over family dysfunction. "This place is beautiful," Mom said during her first visit, sitting on the porch while watching sunset colors reflect off distant peaks. "You chose something that brings peace instead of stress." Dad explored the hiking trails with obvious enjoyment, his relaxed demeanor contrasting sharply with the tension that had characterized our interactions during Derek's crisis period. "I'm proud that you had the strength to stand up for yourself when we were all pressuring you unfairly. You saved this family from making terrible decisions." The cabin also became a place for rebuilding authentic relationships with extended family members who had initially pressured me about financial obligations. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia visited several times, apologizing again for their role in the manipulation while expressing admiration for my independence. "You taught us important lessons about the difference between family support and family exploitation," Uncle Robert acknowledged during a peaceful afternoon by the creek. "Real support means encouraging responsible behavior, not enabling destructive patterns." Jennifer and Michael brought their children for cabin visits that created positive memories, contrasting sharply with the Vineyard reunion confrontation. "The kids love the creek and hiking trails," Jennifer said happily. "It's wonderful having a family gathering place that's associated with peace instead of conflict." As I reflect on this journey while sitting on my cabin porch, watching morning mist rise from the mountain creek, I'm grateful for the strength to prioritize my own well-being over family expectations that would have enabled continued dysfunction. The $200,000 they expected me to sacrifice would have delayed necessary reckonings while rewarding irresponsible behavior. Instead, my modest mountain cabin represents authentic success, independence earned through hard work, peace achieved through healthy boundaries, and relationships rebuilt on mutual respect rather than financial utility. Derek learned accountability through consequences rather than rescue my parents, gained perspective through therapy and honest communication, and our extended family discovered the difference between support and exploitation. The Vineyard's transformation from source of family conflict to sustainable agricultural operation demonstrates that sometimes the wisest choice is accepting reality rather than chasing impossible dreams through other people's sacrifice. My parents enjoy retirement security instead of debt stress. Derek is building character through responsible employment, and I have a peaceful retreat that nurtures my soul. The most important lesson from this experience is that setting boundaries protects everyone involved, not just the person establishing limits. By refusing to enable Derek's irresponsible behavior, I forced positive changes that benefited our entire family system. Real love sometimes requires saying no to requests that would harm everyone's long-term well-being. My mountain cabin will always remind me that choosing personal peace over family chaos was the right decision, and that authentic relationships are built on respect and accountability rather than manipulation and financial obligation. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is refusing to participate in their dysfunction, creating space for healthier patterns to emerge. Have you ever faced pressure from family members to sacrifice your financial security for someone else's poor decisions? How do you balance family loyalty with personal responsibility when relatives expect you to bail them out of situations they created? I'd love to hear your thoughts about setting boundaries with family while maintaining relationships. Thank you for listening to my story about choosing independence over enabling, and I hope it encourages you to prioritize your own well-being when family dynamics become manipulative or destructive. Remember that real love supports growth and accountability, not continued irresponsibility. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more family stories, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Wishing you the courage to make decisions that honor your values and protect your peace.